a real slow turn. That leaf that the Iranians are turning over, according to J.D. Vance. The IRGC attacked a Singapore-flagged cargo ship yesterday in the Strait. The attack, which damaged the ship's bridge but left no casualties, took place near the coast of Oman hours after the Iranian paramilitary's navy warned ships not to use the routes through the waterway that the regime hadn't sanctioned. But they don't control the strait. And it's open for business. Okay. Secretary of State Marco Rubio dismissed the idea that there is any daylight between him and Vance and the administration, and that there is any hard feelings that Vance is riding point on the negotiations.
Sir, as the country's top diplomat, do you not want more of a direct role in these talks, which have been, until now, really led by the Vice President and
I think like any, I think that's just a silly analysis. So the Vice President is the second-ranking person in our government. It just shows you how seriously we take that endeavor. And we have a team of people that do work. I mean, I'm here today because they were overseas last week. We all have a role to play in this regard. So, I mean, I'm here. I've been here for 3 days. This is a key component of that. So, but that, I think that's a really silly question. The Vice President of the United States, other than the President, is the second most powerful person in our government. The fact that he's directly involved in this tells you the importance that our administration has given to this topic. So I think it's a very positive thing that he's involved in it.
But by the same token, Rubio speaks of the Iranian clerics in different tones than does J.D. Vance, you'll take note.
You used to call them religious theocratic lunatics. Do you still believe that language applies to the leadership today?
Well, look, it's not that I believe it, it's the fact of the matter. I mean, the Iranian system is led by clerics, radical clerics. That's what it's always been led by, and that's what it continues to be led by. That said, we also have to manage the geopolitics of the situation. And then there's if they've changed their mindset, or if they've changed their approach to their relations with the United States and their neighbors, then we're going to give this thing a chance to work. Maybe this changed. I'm not saying it has. I'm saying the president wants to explore whether that's the case. And if it has, we're going to find out. But we're not going to find out because of what they say. We're going to find out because of what they do. We're going to judge them by their actions.
Yes, but they are theocratic lunatics. They still are. It's a little bit different than the encomia offered by J.D. Vance. For more on this, pleased to be joined by Daniel DePetris, fellow at Defense Priorities, syndicated foreign affairs columnist at the Chicago Tribune and Newsweek. Daniel, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Dan. How you doing?
Good. You wrote "Now Comes the Hard Part" recently. Well, that just seems to be something that is playing out on a hourly basis. The hard part of getting the Iranians to offer specific performance in the direction of living up to the optimism that they can be our partners in peace here.
Yeah, I mean, the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding last week was obviously a good first step in kind of establishing a groundwork for additional negotiations, right? And that's essentially what the deal was supposed to be doing, was stop the war, reopen the strait, get oil prices down, or at least a little more stabilized than they were during the war, and give us some more time to actually hash out these really tough problems on the nuclear issue. And when I say the hard part begins, I'm talking specifically about the nuclear aspects, where the Iranians have been extremely stubborn in their maximalist position, as have the Trump administration. So, you know, either they have to balk a little bit, or the Iranians balk, or they come into a little middle ground here as to how long the Iranians can operate their program, how much enrichment they can produce, or we could very well be back into a shooting war like we were several weeks ago.
What do you think the dynamic is between Rubio and Vance right now? What it actually is? Do you get the sense that obviously Rubio is going to be loyal to the president and to the administration's policy? He has to play the song that the president calls. But as I said, he speaks very differently about the Iranians than does Vance, and I wonder if he's very happy not to be riding point on this because he doesn't have much faith in it, and he doesn't want to wear the jacket for it.
Yeah, there very well could be an issue with that, Dan. I think the reason that Vance is a little more deferential than the Rubio has been is because Vance is really the center of the negotiations. He's the one leading the U.S. negotiating team with the Iranians. He's got to be a little more disciplined in his public statements than Rubio is.
Does he though? Why does he have to be in Galabaf and Arachi and the Iranians don't?
Well, I mean, ideally, you would have both sides doing this,
well,
right? And I don't know. I do find it interesting, though, that I can't verify this myself, but there were public reports that Vance did not believe that the war was smart to begin with, right? So
right.
It is interesting that Trump has sort of tapped him to lead the diplomacy in a war that he didn't really agree that was worth waging in the first place. I think Rubio was on the opposite side of that question. He did believe that military force was required to kind of compel the Iranians to negotiate more seriously. So there's a dissonance in rhetoric, and there's a dissonance in just positions between these two individuals. And of course, both are potentially 2028 presidential candidates for the Republican Party. So that's another interesting angle.
No question. Right. So who wants to, I mean, depending on how this goes, who wants to be, most closely aligned with how it goes. There also is I just sense, having watched Rubio for, a while now, he's been obviously in public office longer than Vance. They just have a very different philosophy about these matters. I think Vance is, believes you can, or believes this is the best we can do, is to try to normalize relations with Iran through trade and investment, which in my view is a complete misunderstanding of Iran. And Rubio thinks it's leverage and sticks, not carrots, that are going to do the job with the Iranians that the administration has stated it wants to do.
I think that's fair. I mean, this is sort of a microcosm of their world beliefs in general. I mean, Vance is pretty, I don't want to call him a restrainer or a realist. He's more of a kind of like a quasi realist, meaning like, use hard power if it's absolutely necessary. Otherwise, other countries should be able to do their own business, and the United States should be able to do their business. Whereas Rubio, I think, is a far more traditional hawkish Republican and is sort of in the Ronald Reagan mold of the party, which, during Trump's presidency has sort of dissipated a little bit in influence. So it's a very interesting political question here as to the two men's roles within the administration and just their general outlook on how international relations work. Well,
to be fair to Trump and the approach, including with Vance riding point. Interesting development. Bill Cassidy, the outgoing senator from Louisiana, no fan of President Trump, got into a bit of an exchange with him at lunch on Wednesday, apparently, according to him. But nonetheless, he changed his vote on the War Powers resolution to try to, send a signal to Trump to that we're not supportive of additional military action there. He changed his position on that. And he sat down with Marge Brennan there from Face the Nation to explain why. Take a listen.
After the exchange I had with the president yesterday, I passed a note to Steve Witkoff. Steve, I would consider changing my vote, but I've been voting yes because I've not been briefed. He said, called me back in the hour, and let's have a briefing. We had it last night.
What did you hear that changed your mind?
So if the original objections were to destroy, degrade, if you will, Iran's nuclear capability, their ability to do a ballistic missile, and their conventional warfare capability, and we were supposed to be out of there in 4 to 5 weeks, with maybe a little bit of a sprinkling of regime change. That's how it came across. The regime change is off the table. That doesn't seem as if that's going to happen. But it does seem as if the way they laid it out, the other 3 objectives can be reached. And with those other 3 objectives, now, we have to trust but verify, but as they laid it out, they have a plausible plan by which to achieve those, and that's what I was interested in.
You wanted to get the details on the diplomacy.
Correct.
Okay. Because on Wednesday, you and President Trump had that angry exchange.
Yeah, anyway, so that the point is that he was persuaded by his conversation with Witkoff then there's actually a plan that is plausible to achieve those three objectives that he outlined. And and that's coming from somebody who has been a bit of a Trump antagonist. So that is an interesting development.
Yeah, let's see if the plan is implemented, right? I mean, the administration, especially the first 2 to 3 weeks of the war, their public reasoning and public rationale for the war was sort of, kind of schizophrenic, if you will. And it's gotten a lot better over the last 4 weeks for sure. But I speak as somebody who's sort of nonpartisan here. I want to see action as opposed to words. Like the administration can put out as many statements as it wants. I want to see if they're actually implementing what they say they're going to do.
And your assessment of the Pakistanis and to some extent the Qataris as brokers here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, look, I think the Pakistanis are basically driving the train here. Obviously, Trump trusts the Pakistani leadership, Field Marshal Asim Munir, and the Pakistani President Shehbaz Sharif. They're relatively close on a personal level. So there's some trust with the Americans. The Iranians seem to trust the Pakistanis and are comfortable with their facilitating role between the two countries. So, whoever's taking charge of the intermediary diplomacy here right now is Pakistan. They seem to be doing a pretty fine job of keeping everybody at the table. That's really all you can ask of Pakistan at this point.
And the prospects here, Rubio reiterated yesterday that we expect Iran to allow nuclear inspectors as soon as possible. 60 days. This licensure that was granted for them to restart their business in terms of moving oil and petroleum products. That's a 60-day thing. I mean, do you anticipate that there would really be a clawback? Like if we're not to a place where the Iranians has provided anything, meanwhile they're piling up billions of dollars on a daily basis to shut it all down.
I don't believe President Trump wants to return that he would be opposing the NATO. It not willing daytime the issues that have been dividing the two countries for the last 3 decades. That both countries will probably try to extend allows for that. If we come to the point where the talks break down completely, that's just my personal.
Can't to take a back the interests of both parties to extend it beyond the midterms, the interests of Iran to keep cashing in, and the interests of Trump to say we're still under negotiations, it's complicated, we're working it out, but at least the hostilities have stopped and oil prices are back down and so on and so forth. So, I mean, this could go on for some time because it might be in their both parties' short to medium term interest to have it go on past November.
Yeah, this could become a kind of a new status quo, right? I mean, the new kind of the Iranians keep exporting their oil. The Americans continue to claim that the negotiations are proceeding the way we want them to proceed. So that's certainly possible. If you remember, Dan, when Obama was negotiating with the Iranians so many years ago, they had multiple extensions of the deadline that they imposed. They had about 3 or 4 extensions before they hit that final goalpost. And I know a lot of people didn't like the JCPOA and still don't, but the point here is that just because a deal has a 60-day, 90-day deadline doesn't mean it's kind of a hard and fast rule.
Daniel DePetris, fellow at Defense Priorities and syndicated foreign affairs columnist at the Chicago Tribune and Newsweek. Daniel, thanks for joining us as always. Appreciate it.
Great to talk to you, Dan. Thank you.
Yep, you too. Annie, join us in the alphawealthgroup.com answer line.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
You need a construction company, but who?
Call Croscom.
A construction company you can trust that shares your Christian and conservative values. For decades, Croscom has been doing work in Chicagoland, Northwest Indiana, and Wisconsin. Roofs, siding, windows, doors, gutters, basically everything for your home or business, even solar. Quality work and professional services that make you feel great about your decision to